Welcome to How to Build in the Thermaltake Core P3 Pro. Today our lead systems builder Nick will take you through all the steps to build in your gorgeous new Core P3 Pro case. This is an AIO build and we will cover all the steps from putting the case together, installing your hardware and even some tips about cable routing. Let's get into it. Part 1. Assembling the case. As you can see, all the components of the Core P3 Pro begin separately. This is because the parts come flat packed, so you can assemble it however you like. Begin by removing the back panel, which will then give you access to the screw holes required to mount the P3 Pro's silver support rods. Now remove the screw which comes inside the support rod and thread it through the hole in the panel, and then simply thread the rod back onto the screw, securing it in place. Now do this again for the other 4 rods. Once all the rods are in, we'd advise for you to install your power supply bracket next. There are brackets here with 2 variants depending on whether you want to horizontally or vertically mount your PSU, and another which supports it from the other side. Grab the other half of the power supply bracket and screw that into the corresponding holes, ensuring it faces like so. You have a few holes to choose from depending on the length of your power supply, so measure out the size to ensure you're using the right one now. Then simply use the supplied screws to screw in the bracket to the holes accordingly, with the horizontal option requiring you to screw in the other side of the bracket underneath the case itself. Now let's install the feet. Flip the chassis upside down and find these 2 screw holes. We're going to be using these slightly longer screws that comes with the case. Thread the end of the feet along the bottom metal rods until it aligns with the screw holes Nick pointed out earlier and screw them in place. Next, let's screw in the PCIe bracket. You're simply going to want to find these little holes on the case which align with the holes on the bracket and screw it in. You'll also want the bracket to face like so. Lastly, it's time to install the included fan mount bracket. This can either go at the top or front depending on where you want to mount your fans or radiator. For Nick today, he'll be mounting his at the front, but a similar method will apply if you prefer to mount yours on the top. If you do want a front mount like Nick, just be aware that you may need to remove one of the silver rods that we installed earlier. We'd recommend the top one so you don't have to remove the feet again. To install the bracket, simply thread it through and ensure it lines up with the holes. Also ensure it faces pointing outwards like so. Then screw it through the holes in the back, and then if you front mounted like Nick, place your metal rod back through and screw it back in place. Part 2. Building in the case. Now let's dive into building inside the Core P3 Pro. Nick's beginning by readying the motherboard to go into the case. As this system will be used for office work, we're running slightly older hardware today, with the CPU already having been installed and ready to go. Nick begins by readying the backplate for the AIO that we'll be using later, as he recommends ensuring that all backplates are installed prior to installing your motherboard. Next, gently lay down your Core P3 Pro and lift your motherboard into the case. All of the standoffs for our motherboard are already in place, but if you are missing a standoff, others will be included with your case. Nick ensures all the standoffs are aligned before screwing it in, as with the Core P3 Pro you don't have an I/O cutout to align your motherboard with, and he then begins screwing in the motherboard with the included screws. Next, Nick's going to do something a little different and go ahead and handle all the case cables. This is because it's a lot easier to install them now with less in the case than later on. Nick begins with all the fiddly front I/O cables before inserting the HD audio cable and last the USB cable. By keeping on top of your cable management now, it makes it a whole lot easier than leaving it all for the end. You can do it, we believe in you. Next, Nick is going to insert the SSD that we're using for this system. Feel free to skip ahead if you aren't using an SSD or HDD, as the mounting process is similar. First, remove the back mount onto which your drive will be mounted onto. Then you can simply screw your SSD or HDD directly onto it, and place your mount back in place and screw it back in. If you want to learn more about how to install an HDD or SSD, we have a full tutorial on it linked in the screen or in the description. Now Nick is just quickly inserting the RAM sticks, which you may have done prior. Now let's install the power supply. This is super easy in our Core P3 Pro, as you simply slide it on through the slots we installed earlier and then just screw it in place. Now don't panic if the silver metal rod is now blocking some of the screw holes. You can simply slide the silver rod out from earlier just to get those last few screws in and then slide it back in place. You can then thread all the PSU cables to the back of the case, ready for routing. Next, let's install these front fans. First, thread the cables through the routing holes so you can plan their paths. Then simply install each fan through the mount. As we're using 3 fans, they all align perfectly, but if you are using less than that, you might need to move them around a little bit to find the right location on the mount to screw them in. Keeping with fans, let's get the AIO ready. Nick will be mounting ours to the motherboard side bracket, but a similar technique applies if you are installing yours to the bracket. First, let's screw in the fans. The main thing to think about here is what is the best direction for them to go for cable routing. We have a far more in-depth tutorial on the screen and in the description that can give you more tips for installing an AIO in your case. Once all the fans are installed, it's time to place the AIO into the case. Nick is threading the cables through afterwards, but you can also thread them through prior to inserting the radiator too. Then screw your radiator in place. Once all your cables are threaded at the back, it's time to place the water block on. Smear an X-size amount of thermal paste onto your CPU and lower the water block atop it. Using the silver screws, you can then screw the water block in. Don't forget to plug in your AIO pump header into the relevant port for you. To find this out, check with your motherboard manual. Now that all the fans and AIO are installed, let's move on to the graphics card. Simply ascertain which screws to remove from your PCIe bracket, which you can do by hovering your GPU over your PCIe lane and seeing which ones align with your graphics card. Then push back the lever on the PCIe Express lane if required and slot your GPU in. You can then secure it in place using those same screws from your PCIe brackets to keep the GPU in place. It's cable time! Now go ahead and insert all your motherboard cables from the power supply, like your CPU cable, motherboard connector cable, as well as your PCIe cable for your graphics card. Nick does have a great guide showcasing all his pro tips regarding cable management in the video linked on the screen and in the description, but here's some specific tips for the Core P3 Pro. Nick's main tip is to utilize as many tie down points as you can, and also don't be afraid to tie your cables to other cables if need be. The CPU cable is a great choice for attaching your other cables to, as it runs from the top of the case all the way to the bottom. In the Core P3 Pro, the main area you can utilize for cable routing is the sides and underneath the mounting brackets, so utilize these to your advantage. We definitely advise testing your system before putting your front and back panels back on in case you have any issues. But once you're happy, pop that back panel back on and screw back in those captive screws. To put your front glass panel on, simply screw the ends off the silver rods and slot the glass panel in. The case actually has a small ledge that it'll sit on. Then simply screw back on the ends of the silver rods to secure the glass panel in place, and you're done! That was how to build in the Thermaltake Core P3 Pro. If you have any questions about the case or suggestions for other Thermaltake cases you might want to learn how to build in, feel free to leave them down below. We'll see you in the next video, and happy building!